why I decided to add apple trees to my white park cattle of the Mapperton estate. Well, the white park cattle to me are very beautiful. They have very sweet faces, but the painting is mostly white and green, and I realized that may be not everyone's idea of what they want to look at in a painting. I mean, they might like the faces of the cattle, but they might not really want to just see so much white. So I've decided to add some apple trees, both in the foreground and in the background. And I think that'll add a nice touch of red and a nice touch of liveliness, and just change up the painting a bit. So some of the trees will be coming out behind the cattle, and some will be going over them. And so essentially the bodies of the cattle may be a little obscured, whereas the faces will be left. I'm using raw umber, and I'm just using the side of the filbert brush. I'm not really going into those lines that I made, because that's not how the branches grow really. And initially I painted this painting just to highlight the amazing efforts of the owners of the Mapperton estate to reintroduce the white park cattle, which had almost become extinct in the UK. And since they're such unique cattle, with their white hides and their sweet faces, I thought, why not help in some way draw attention to the conservation effort by just painting the cattle. And maybe not everybody wants to look at cattle in a painting, but the background, the countryside that they're in is very beautiful, and they've allowed the natural flowers and indigenous flowers and trees to grow back, and I thought that's also something to highlight. That's why I added these little flowers. And but now I'm just putting the apple trees in the front of and sort of around the cattle, because they wander all over the farm, and it's a very large estate, different parts of it. So some of it is rewilded and not all of it is. Some of it's used for other purposes. So I hope anyone watching will find this interesting, and not just from the artistic point of view, but also from the point of view of the cattle, and they're being reintroduced and saved from extinction. So it was burnt umber that I used, not raw umber, sorry about that. But now I'm going to add the apples. I'll add the leaves afterwards, because a lot of the leaves will be covering the apples. So I'm just going to add bunches of apples here and there. And I'm using the filbert brush again. And I'm using a vermilion red. It's a pretty red, and will make pretty apples. And the apples grow in bunches. Sometimes they grow singly. So I'll just add them all over randomly, and I'll add the stalks and the leaves afterwards. I've added a lot of apples everywhere, red apples, and I think that's a perfect apple for this setting. English red apples, and obviously some of them will have some green in them, and some will have other little bits of yellow in them, and the variations that you get in apples. But I'm not going to add those colors now while the paint is still wet. I just want that paint to settle. I'm going to add some of the leaves in the background, but not the leaves that will go over the apples, because there are a lot of leaves in apple trees, so you may only see like the tips of the apples sticking out in the end, and that's why I wasn't too careful with them, other than the ones in the front. The ones in the background are smaller anyway, and you won't see a lot of them once the leaves are on. But I just wanted to add that touch of red, which I think does liven up the painting wonderfully. So I'll start down here. I'll just add, and they're quite big leaves, not enormous, but they are quite big. So again, using the filbert brush, and I'm using emerald green paint, because it's a nice green, and it's different to the green that's already on the canvas. So like I said, this is just the first layer of the leaves, and I'll come back and do a second, and who knows, maybe even a third layer, depending on how the painting looks in the end. I added leaves all over and all around the apples, and some of the green did of course mix with the red, and some mixed with the brown of the tree, and some of it seems to be dry, but it's not all dry. But I'm going to add another layer of leaves now, and I'm going to start with some lighter leaves in the front here. So it's the same green but mixed with a little white, and as I said, they have a lot of, apple trees have a lot of leaves, so I'm just going to add them everywhere and bring the painting to life. I think it will look nice in the end. I think it will look very different to how it looked before. And even though these apples in the front are bigger, they don't have to be quite this big, so if I go over some of them, that's okay. And they don't all have to be perfectly round. This is a painting. It is not a whole bunch of apples on a table, so the result is quite different. I can't see where my green is. My palette is a bit messed up already. So many colours on there. I did want these, I'm going to put the canvas on my lap to see better. I wanted these light colours to be in the foreground. Well, of course they're all colours all over the place. But, I mean, there might be some light ones in the background where the sun catches them, or just the glow of the sky. So one can have fun with one's paintings and make them to your personal taste. Obviously, if you look at photos of apple orchards, I actually looked at quite a few, and it's hard to say that there's any one particular look. Some of the trees are quite low on the ground, some of them are quite brown, some of them are quite grey. Again, it depends on the light the photo was taken in. Some of them just have a lot of thin branches reaching down to the ground almost. You could just walk past and pick one. And some of them are quite tall. So it depends on the variety. I added another layer of leaves, and now I have to stop because I can't see the wood for the trees. I added touches of green to some of the apples, and I softened the faces of the cows because I felt that the lines were a bit too hard. And cows, like deer and other antelope, have rectangular pupils, and their eyes are not quite as big as they appear to be in this painting. So I also made them a little bit smaller, but I think I can make them a little smaller still, especially they can definitely be softer. And I won't try and paint in the, I have to wipe that away. I won't try and paint in the rectangular pupils because you won't see them from a distance anyway. So it's just a fact I was mentioning as I learnt it when I was, just reading up about cattle and deer and other animals. They're definitely not all the same. And I was saying about the pupils of cows and goats and deer, because it gives them rectangular pupils, is because it gives them 360-degree vision around the sides of their heads, because they are, after all, preyed upon by larger predators. And so that gives them some protection. As far as vision is concerned, I wouldn't mind having that kind of vision myself. Well, any vision other than what I've got would be preferable, but definitely that would be wonderful. So I'm softening the faces a bit more, and I also made the muzzles a bit softer because they seemed a bit square. And they do have very definite features from the photos I've seen, but again, photos are so deceptive, and you can't they're taken when the animals are maybe moving or chewing the cud or whatever, and you don't get the full picture. So, and then you try and paint it, obviously you lose even more of reality. And now I'm adding some more apples that have fallen onto the ground. So I just marked them in lightly with some violet that I had, and now I'm colouring them in with the vermilion red, because of course there will be apples on the ground. Perhaps some over here as well. Some of so these would be large and quite ripe, and the cows would be interested in what they're doing in their pasture. And it just also adds to the overall colour and life of the painting. So composition is very important in deciding on whether a painting will have appeal or not. And so one always has to stand back and say, well, I like it, but is there something missing? Is there something that might appeal more, or something that doesn't appeal, that would appeal less to people? And make adjustments accordingly. So it takes time, because when when I do paintings, I might do them in 2 or 3 days or in a week, and then I think I'm finished, but then they lie around because I'm waiting for them to dry before I oil them out, and then I look at them again with fresh eyes and I see things that I might not have noticed before, and then it's time to make a change. I'm much happier with this painting now. It's looking lovely. I'm now going to add some lighter leaves onto it, because there are too many dark leaves, and also they need to be quite big leaves. So I'm using a bit of sap green mixed with white. It might be a bit too much white, so I'll just put some more sap green in there. It's still too light. And so this will add some variety, and also cover the apples a bit more, because the tree has so much foliage in it that you don't always see the whole apple. I think I've added enough leaves now, enough contrasting leaves, and to me it looks like the white park cattle are down in the valley behind the apple orchard. So I think that's it for this painting. I think I'm happy with it now, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope it's given you some ideas for your paintings, and I hope more people like it now that it has the red apple contrasting with all the green and white that was there before. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to go to to my channel to see the full videos. All the parts are listed there. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.